You're listening to the Career Musician Podcast with creator and host, Nomad. With 20-plus years of experience in the music industry, Nomad has done just about everything to earn a living as a career musician. From being music director to celebrity artists, playing iconic arenas and stadiums, composing for film and TV, and even playing your average local club gigs, he's done it all. Nomad's mission is to empower musicians across the globe with strategies for a sustainable career while blasting stereotypes, and to bring you tried and true wisdom from his colleagues in this crazy business we call music.
On this episode of The Career Musician, we have a legend, Richard T. Bear. Originally from New York, this dude is amazing. The Blues Brothers, Billy Squier, Cher, Kiss, Stephen Stills, Miami Vice, Pat Benatar, and the list goes on, whom T. Bear has worked with in some capacity. We're talking about the stuff that career musician legends are made of. Now, T. Bear is officially out of hibernation with his new single and video, One Day at a Time. This single paves the way for Fresh Bear Tracks, his forthcoming album to be released early 2021. And he has such legendary guests on this project as Stephen Stills, Edgar Winter, Benmont Tench, Robby Krieger, Laurence Juber, and Denny Seiwell from Wings, keyboard player Mark Foster from Farce of the People, Mike Minell from John Fogerty, and of course, T-Bear himself. You will not want to miss this project. Check out T-Bear right here on TCM. I am here with T-Bear, the one and only Richard T-Bear. This is the man with the plan. Welcome to the Career Musician Podcast.
Oh, it's great to be here, man. It really is.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I am a fan, number one.
Thank you.
Number two, I am glad, as your press release says, that you decided to come out of hibernation and, come back to the music.
Well, it was time, and I've really put my best foot forward, and I'm letting I'm putting my soul, my spiritual self into this, and so it was time to come back.
Absolutely. Now, from what I understood, from just doing some quick reading up, One Day at a Time, your single. Was that the impetus for this whole, portion here, this segment of your career?
No, actually, what happened was we have to go back 3 years ago, and we'll take a giant leap backwards. And my wife, Nina,
Yes.
She said to me, it's time for you to come back. It's time for you to start playing out live. It's time for you to do what you do. And so she would sit at her desk, and I had a piano right in front of her desk. And she was going back to, in her 50s, she went back to UCLA to get a degree. And she would do her homework and write her papers, and I would write songs on the other side of her desk. And, we kind of 3 feet away from each other, did that every night. And all of a sudden, this flood of music started coming out of me. And I started writing song after song after song. And she said, now what are you going to do with all these songs? I said, I have no idea. She says, oh, I have an idea. You're going to go in the studio. You're going to call everybody that you know. You're going to tell them that you're coming back and you need help. And they're going to help you. So that's exactly what happened. I 3 years ago, I went in the studio and we recorded, as it turns out, 23 tracks, and over the next 2 years. And Robby Krieger was nice enough to give me his place, and everybody I knew came in and started playing on the record. So it was a beautiful thing.
First of all, that's an amazing story. That's so touching, number one. And then secondly, as Nina, your wife, said, you're going to call your buddies and they're going to help you. And, the buddies you have are no slouches, man.
Well, I'm very grateful to have played on a lot of good records, and also, knowing a lot of people throughout my time. So it was a beautiful thing. As you know, Nina passed away a year ago yesterday, and
so sorry, brother.
Thank you, man.
Sorry.
She wrote me a note 2 weeks before she passed, and she said, "Here's what you're going to do. Here's my recipe for you for your life. You're going to go out. You're going to tour. You're never going to cancel another gig. You're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to put this record out, and most importantly, you're going to fall in love again." So that's what she was. So the album is dedicated to her. We were known as Fox and Bear, and when the album comes out, you'll see a little fox and a little bear. And and she was also a wordsmith. She was the grammar police. So she, I'd come up with a line, and she goes, "Oh, no. It's got to be this way." So I'm really grateful that she gave me a kick in the ass and sent me out the door. And this is her album. This is her album, and the beautiful thing about it is this is all authentic, genuine, and true. So, there's not, well, where are we going to fit this in or that in, and let's go, this was all right from the heart, right from the soul. This is a soulful album.
Well, you're a soulful cat, man. I mean, just listening to you sing and play and watching your videos on YouTube, man, it's like, you bring me to the good old days of music.
So, yeah, well, that's where I come out. That's where I come from. The single that's out now, One Day at a Time.
Yes.
What this is about is when the COVID thing struck, I was a few days away from playing a gig that weekend. And, of course, the gig got canceled, and I said, well, what do I do now? And 1 week turned into 2 weeks. And the end of the month, I was sitting there in my pajamas one night, and I spoke to a friend of mine called Dr. Karen. And she's a therapist, and she and I were talking about, what everybody's going through. This was only 2 weeks into this thing. And I said, well, what are you telling your patients? And she said, well, what I tell them is this. I said, we'll all get through this together, one day at a time. And I went, oh, there's a hook. I'm going to snatch that, and I'm going to write a song. Now, you've got to understand that I'm in a program where I am clean and sober for a long time, 37 years. Right. And I've heard that phrase before. This wasn't, I didn't just fall off the turnip truck. This this thing I've heard, but I never heard it that way in regards, in relation to the COVID-19, pandemic. So the next day I sat down at the piano and I said, I'm going to write about what I'm feeling. I'm going to write about where I'm at. And the hook's going to be one day at a time. We can all, get through this together. So I did that. And then what people were asking me to do is, like, every Throwback Thursday on Facebook, I have my own little, Facebook page and the band page and all. And I would put up a song, So it turns out I decided to put up One Day at a Time. Just piano vocal, And all of a sudden, it took off and went from, a few hundred views that day. The next day, it was up to a couple of thousand views. By the end of the month, it was up to 85 or 88,000 views, and it reached 125,000 people. So the record company in all their wisdom, how wisdomy they are, they said, hey, we have your album in the can, all 12 tracks, but we'd like you to record this as a single and put this out. So what happened was I called a couple of my friends that are ex-Wings guys. Laurence,
I noticed that.
Laurence Juber and Denny Seiwell, and we play in a band together, by the way, called Route 66.
That's right. I checked that out. I love you guys.
Yeah, and so then I called another friend of mine, Mark Foster from Foster the People.
Yes, sir.
And I said, "Hey, Mark, what do you think of this?" He says, "Oh, this is great, man. Let's do something with it." And then I got a hold of Tony Bronicle, who produced my album. And I said, Tony, can we get back into Robby Krieger's? And he's with social distancing and masks and gloves and shit like that. Right. And he says, yeah, we can do that. And then he got a hold of Mike Minell from, who's he play with now?
Oh, Fogerty, Tom Jones.
Yeah, he plays with Fogerty. Yeah, he plays with Fogerty now. So we all went in there, and 3 takes later, it was done. And we put it out, and it's. Apparently, yesterday they told me that on Spotify, on the video that we put out this little short clip, which is 20 seconds long or something like that. There's a million 1.3 views on it, so that's really good.
Incredible.
Yeah. So the thing about this song is, look, we're in this. There's only one way out of this, and that is a day at a time. And that's the way I've managed to live my life, staying clean and sober, and showing up for my wife for 20 months and being by her bedside and taking care of her one day at a time. And that's the way we're going to get through this pandemic, together, a day at a time. It's a mantra.
Amen. I mean, what else can I say to that? It's so true, so true. Wow, eloquently put, my friend.
Thank you.
And so let's unpack a couple of these things, because
let's do that.
Yeah, you said quite a bit, and I want to make sure that all the listeners understand. So first of all, for our younger listeners who might not be hip to some of the music history, when you say Robby Krieger, when you say Stephen Stills, when you talk about Wings, so. Laurence Juber and Denny and, all these are all heavy cats. These are all what I call career musician legends, and such as yourself, you're a career musician legend. So we have to think, I always say we have to have reverence for the musicians that came before us to pave the way so Absolutely. That we can do what we all do. So I want the listeners to understand that those are all heavy cats, and do some research. All these names will be in the notes, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so tell us about your relationship with Tony and Robby Krieger, and have you always cut over there at Krieger's place, and you and Tony, do you guys go way back? Or?
Yeah, Tony and I go back to his first official kind of I'm in the business and I'm happening kind of gig. We have to go back to the days of Rickie Lee Jones.
Yeah.
And we have to go back to the days of her Pirates album.
Wow.
And what happened was Warner Brothers called me. See, I was playing with Crosby, Stills, and Nash for a little while and recording with them, and was doing, Southern Cross at the time, where I was playing keyboards on that, which was a hit that they had. And I was hanging out with Rickie a little bit, and Warner's called me and said, hey, we can't find Rickie, and her tour starts tomorrow in Austin, Texas, and we're going to pull the plug on it if she doesn't show up.
Damn. Dude.
So she had, a habit, and it wasn't a good one, and so I called a bunch of friends of mine, and I said, anybody know where Rickie is? And they said, well, she might be at this guy's place in Venice. So I went down there with a friend of mine, and the guy, Rickie remembers this story because I hadn't talked to her for 25 or 30 years, and I ran into her at one of my gigs, and she said to me, oh, I remember you. you were the guy that kicked the door in. I said, yeah. So what happened was I went down there, the guy wouldn't let me in. I kicked the door in. She was not doing so well, and I put her on an airplane, and Warner's had chartered a Learjet and flew us to Austin. We showed up almost an hour late for the gig, and her tour went on. I flew back to L.A., but Tony Bronigal was the drummer.
This is so cool. These are the real rock and roll stories.
And Reggie McBride was the bass player.
Oh, man, come on.
Okay, so now here comes fast forward 30, 40 years, whatever later.
Yeah.
So Tony and I know each other because of all his work with all the great blues cats and Taj Mahal and Bonnie Raitt and Little Feat and everybody. And I said to Tony, I said, hey, man, I need some help. I remember what Nina said for me to ask for help. And I said, I need help. I want to make a record. I want to record some things. I got 3 or 4 songs that are ready to go. He says, are you kidding me? You saved the tour. That launched me, that tour. From that, I got, all these other things. I owe you. I said, you don't owe me, man. He says, no, you don't realize what a godsend you were to get her there. So I said, well, thank you. And from that moment on, Tony said, we're together, man, and I'll do anything I can for you. So I said, well, you know what? I just did a session over at Robby Krieger's place. I was playing keyboards on some guy's couple of songs on his album. And Robby and Michael Dumas said to me, well, this is kind of a private studio, but anytime you want to come in, it's yours. So I said, well, I'd like to start recording an album. And they said, mi casa, su casa. So at that point, we came in, and then Reggie McBride said, hey, man, I want to be in on this. And Hutch Hutchinson said, hey, I want to be in on this.
Wow.
And Will Lee said, hey, I want to be in on this. And Benmont Tench says, oh, I want to play on this.
Jeez.
And Stephen Stills and Tom Scott and Walter Trout and we can go on and on and on. And all the cats from the Route 66 band. And then Edgar Winter said, hey, I want to play on this, And so I was, I was like turning people down. It was crazy.
It's like a who's list of modern music, you know?
Yeah. So we recorded there and had a ball, and I went back to the well because I had such a great, time there recording the album Fresh Bear Tracks, which is coming out, I think, December. So I went back there and I went to the well for One Day at a Time. That's what happened. Yeah. And Michael Dumas is an amazing engineer. He's great. And he kind of runs the place. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Wow. Okay. So like I said, there you have it. Those are the names. Those are the cats. These names will be in the show notes on the podcast. Do your homework if you don't know. And for those of us who do know, well, we know. Now we're blown away. That's beautiful. So
and there's probably another 10 names on there I didn't list, but you can look them up when the record comes out. And
we'll check it out when it drops. Yeah. All right. So now let's rewind a little bit. First of all, thank you for being so candid, and all of our my prayers and best wishes go out to you for everything that you've endured, and I'm sure our listeners feel the same. So let's rewind now. How did T-Bear become T-Bear? I know, first of all, you're a fellow New Yorker. I'm from Long Island, or as I say, Strong Island.
Okay. Which side? North Shore or South Shore?
Well, I'm on the east side, Suffolk County.
Okay.
So Huntington, Comac, Deer Park, Northport, the whole.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, you were born in the city?
I was born in Manhattan.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. And I spent a lot of time in Miami and Puerto Rico and Port-au-Prince, Haiti.
Wow.
So that's where my parents kind of raised me. And so I got a lot of kind of Creole, Calypso, Mento, Latin, soul influence. And then when we went back to New York, I was raised in Yonkers. And my next door neighbor, literally next door, was Milt Jackson, the vibe player from Modern Jazz Quartet.
That's crazy.
And on the other side of him was Floyd Patterson, the boxer. And so, I'd listen to Milt and I'd listen to the stuff he played. And he was a nice cat to me. He was a neighbor. I was a kid.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to play music from Jump Street. That's it. At 12 years old, I had a band.
That's awesome. Wow. And how about T-Bear? Did that just kind of happen by chance?
The way that T-Bear happened was I got signed to a solo deal by RCA. And RCA said to me at the time, because I went under my real name, which is Richard Gerstein, and they said to me, we love you, and we want to make records with you, and we want you to be a prominent artist on our roster. Can we do something about your last name? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, why? They said, because Jews don't sell in the South. And I said,
wow, yeah.
I said, I never looked at it that way, but I sure would like a record deal. And there was, a lot on the table. So they said, have you got any nicknames? And I said, yeah, people call me Bear because I kind of get scruffly and I had a beard and everything. And I said, good. Now you're going to be Richard the Bear. I said, okay, Richard Bear. I said, yeah, I like Richard the Bear better. And I said, how about Richard T. Bear? And they said, okay, well, what does the T stand for? I said, trustworthy. Where do I sign?
That is incredible.
So
okay,
that's what happened.
I love these anecdotes. They're so awesome. I always talk about the power of branding and identity and, having an image and an alias. And you did that. People ask me, well, what does Nomad mean? Well, again, not trying to compare myself, but you can go down the list. Santana, Cher, Sting, Prince, all these. They have one name. And when you hear that one name, it's such an identity. There's no mistaken. Right. T-Bear. And you understood that, after the record label explained it, you understood that at a young age. You're like, hey, I'm all in. So you did it.
I just needed a chance. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I love that. And I love the fact that you just said yes. Yeah. So many times, especially musicians, we get caught up in our own little thing and we can't break out and just say yes.
It's simple.
You did it.
It's one word.
There you go. I love it. T-Bear, baby. All right. Cool. So then what happened? So you're in New York. You're hanging out with Milt. He's helping you. You got your band.
Well, what happened was I started working at Manny's Music.
Oh, yeah.
And Manny's Music was, a big, prominent music store.
Big.
And all the cats, all the cats, I'm going to grab some coffee. All the cats.
Yeah, me too.
would come in there. All the bands, right. Everybody. And
did Manny's close finally?
Yeah, Manny's finally closed. Yeah,
and it was just recently, right? Not like maybe a couple years ago.
4 years ago or 5 years ago.
Yeah, man.
But it was a great place to hang because as a teenager, I got the power of music there. I got I'd listen to radio all the time, WNEW. I had a long-distance love affair with Allison Steele, the Nightbird, on FM. And,
wow.
I used to get passes to go down to the Fillmore East by the bands that would come in there.
Neat.
So one day, a bunch of guys came in from The Dead. And they said, they said, hey, you're a nice kid. Why don't you come down and see the show? And I said, fine. And I was showing a keyboard to somebody at the time, and they said, hey, you play really good. I said, thank you. They said, well, come on down, man. Come down to the show. We're going to have a good night tonight. We're going to have it's going to be a jam night. It's going to be Traffic, The Dead, and Hot Tuna. And we're all going to play together. I said, cool. It was like an off night at the Fillmore. So down I go, and it was one of the first times I was ever backstage or had a backstage pass, and I go backstage and I'm in the wings and I'm watching this jam and it's just amazing. And all of a sudden, Jerry Garcia looks at me, and he points, and he goes, over here. And he points at a Wurlitzer that's sitting on the stage, kind of near him. And he looks at me and goes, yeah, you, over here. Come on. And I walked out. I almost vomited. I was so scared. And I walk out. I sit down at the Wurlitzer. To this day, I don't know if I played in the right key, the wrong key, minor, major, no matter what. But I was on stage at the Fillmore East playing with the Dead.
Wow.
And it was on. You know, it was on.
That's incredible, dude.
It was on, yeah. It was on from that moment on. And I'd go down and hang out. Yeah, I'd hang out at the Fillmore East all the time. I went down there once to see Iron Butterfly because they were in the store. Yeah. You know, Inagata Devita, you know.
Wow.
And I went down
before Iron Maiden, right? Wasn't the original members of Iron Butterfly, didn't they turn into Iron Maiden? I thought
no, I don't think so.
Okay.
But I went down there, and the reason I'm telling you this is because there's a funny little story about this. I'm in like the 6th row, and I go down to see, you know, Iron Butterfly because I'm a keyboard player, and they have that big keyboard solo in the middle, and I want to hear this, you know. And the first band comes out, and they say, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our opening act tonight. It's their second appearance in the United States. Please welcome from the United Kingdom, Led Zeppelin." Led Zeppelin comes out.
Come on, man.
And tears the place apart.
Of course.
To this day, that was the best opening act I've ever seen, the best set I've ever heard. And when they were finished, I went home. I didn't even stay. And,
wow.
You know, I would go around club to club and venue to venue. King Curtis, for example, was a neighbor of mine when I lived in the city with a girl. And he would take me to some of the clubs to see the Kingpins play. And that was a lot of the cats that, I don't know if you knew who the Kingpins were.
No, that one I don't know.
All right, King Curtis was a sax player. Memphis Soul Stew.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, Cornell Dupree.
Oh, Cornell Dupree, yes.
And Chuck Rainey.
And Chuck Rainey, oh, those are the cats, yeah.
And Bernard Purdy.
Oh, dude, come on.
That was, you know, and Gerald Jamot, and you know, and Billy was on the organ. And
Billy Preston, that's right.
Yeah, that was his band. So I wanted to be black so bad, I can't tell you. Because everybody I kind of digging was black, you know. And he'd take me around to hear the bands and everything. And then I would appear, like, at some of the open mic nights, at Dr. Generosity's, for example, where I got to meet John Prine and Steve Goodman when they first came to New York City. And I was playing there, and Richie Havens walked in, and he walked up to me and said, "I like the way you play. I like your style. I'm recording tomorrow night. Here's the address. Show up. You can play on my Mixed Bag 2 album."
Richie Havens.
So at the time, I was Richard Gerstein. I wasn't T-Bear. So you look at a bunch of albums that I played on in those days, you don't see T-Bear. Okay. You see Gerstein. And, so Richie Havens tapped me. I went in the studio, started setting up, and Bernard Purdy walks in, and Cornell Dupree, and Chuck Rainey. And I said, and all those cats remembered me from King Curtis bringing me around. So they were kind of nice to me. They would fuck with me a little bit, pardon my language.
No, that's all right.
Because they knew I was brand new at this.
Yeah, you're young. You wet behind the ears, as you say, right?
Totally. Yeah. You know, first of all, I wasn't a brother. Second of all,
right.
Second of all, you know, but I did have soul from growing up in Port-au-Prince and you know, in Puerto Rico.
Just being around the culture, man. You know, intrinsically, it's wired in you. Yeah.
So that's the kind of the way I started. Odetta would teach me how to sing. Wow. And I would show her where I was playing piano and things like that. And I had some really, and you know, speaking of John Prine, because I mentioned him,
Yes.
you know, he had come in and he had his first album was just released, and he was playing an open mic night, and Al Bonetta, his manager who passed away, was there with Steve Goodman. They both came in, and John Prine gets up and he starts to play, and this is how I became a songwriter. He starts to play, and he does Hello in There, Angel from Montgomery, and another song, and I never heard better song or better songwriting. And I said to myself, that's who I want to do. That's what I want to do. That's who I want to be. This guy's amazing. So I kind of latched myself on to Dylan, John Prine, Fred Neil. Fred Neil wrote The Dolphins. He wrote Everybody's Talking. He wrote That's the Bag I'm In. So those are the cats I wanted to kind of emulate. And that set me on a really good path, because it wasn't long after that I got a record deal. And it was all because of songs. It wasn't
I was just going to... Oh, sorry.
It wasn't necessarily because I was a good session player.
Right.
It was because there's a lot of good session players. There's a lot of great, much better than me. But what happened was I started becoming a good songwriter.
But see, that's so important. I'm so glad you said that, because this trajectory, you started as a sideman session cat, right?
Right.
Or, you know, gigs, sessions, whatever. Then you see beautiful songwriting take place right before you're like, oh my gosh, that's what I want to do. And then you morph into that. So that's what part of the career musician is all about.
Yep.
So many times as musicians, we get stuck in the back behind the band because we don't know what else to do. We're like, I know I have songs in me. I know I can write. I know I can sing, but I don't know how to break out from behind the curtain to center stage, right?
Right.
Well, you did just that. So that metamorphosis is amazing.
Well,
if you can expound on that, yeah.
Yeah, how I can expound on that is I was playing this kind of a cabaret place downtown in the city called Reno Sweeney's.
You're talking about like down in the village?
Yeah. And the coat check girl there was somebody called Allie Willis.
Okay.
Do you know who Allie Willis is?
No.
Okay. Allie Willis wrote the entire Boogie Wonderland album. She wrote The Color Purple.
Oh, jeez.
And about another 100 charted songs and singles. Okay. And she passed away Christmas Eve this last year.
Oh, man.
And she's in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and
right.
she's from Detroit. And the way she got into the business was in Detroit, where they had Motown and they had a studio there. She would go up to the studio walls outside the place because they'd never let her in, and she'd put her ear to the wall and hear what they were doing inside. And she goes, I want to do this. And so Allie was the coat check girl. I was the piano player. And I'd say, Allie, I got an idea for this song, and I'd give her a cassette tape. And she goes, oh, I have an idea for some lyrics. So what you want to do is you want to align yourself to some people that make your stuff better. I'm T-Bear, and you're listening to the Career Musician Podcast with Nomad.
Blasting the stereotype of musicians. Follow us at the Career Musician Podcast.
Binge previous seasons of the Career Musician Podcast and subscribe for all new episodes.
You know, I've never been selfish in as much as not sharing, come up with a word, you get a third. You know what I mean?
Collaboration is key, man. I always say that.
I've written a lot of songs on my own, but I love collaborating with people as well.
Of course, and the reason why I ask about this, because it's scary. That initial transition can be scary, right?
Oh, it's totally scary.
I mean, especially if you're earning, because I've experienced this myself. You're earning a living as a player,
right?
Session player, gig, whatever, and you're doing good, and you've established your name, and cats know you, and blah, blah, blah.
The other way I started writing in these in that period of years just before I got a record deal was I went to work at a jingle house at Lubunsky Productions. And
best practice.
Yeah. And Louise Messina, who was this beautiful woman who looked after everybody, and every Sunday night, had an orphan's dinner for everybody that, could come over. And she was Italian, and she'd make great pasta, and there'd be like 30 of us there. And she brought me around. She said, okay, start writing jingles. And she'd hand me like 5 or 6 ideas, and I started writing jingles. And from then, it became songs. So there's lots of ways you can jump into the songwriting thing. It's what I did.
I love that, and these are ways to help make it not so scary. Collaborate with people.
Oh yeah,
reach out.
I wrote car jingles, beer jingles, motorcycle jingles.
That's awesome.
All kinds of jingles. Yeah.
Didn't you write for Cher?
Yeah. Actually, what I was doing is I was doing Gene Simmons' solo album. They all did solo albums, and I was ghostwriting with him. And ghostwriting means you kind of like,
Right.
you help on things. I can't tell you what things I've written on in my life, but I can tell you there's 20 records that you might know that I've thrown a line on.
Oh wow!
A couple of lyrics here, there, maybe even a chord change or two to tighten it up or make it jump out.
Yeah.
And I that's why I say I'm not selfish. That's why these days, give me a word, you get a third or something. That's think if you help it, you're a part of it. Yeah. So Gene's album, I was doing Peter Criss, the drummer. I did his album, then I went over to did Gene's album, and wow. Gene decided to do his album at a place called the Manor, which was owned by Virgin Records in England. And so he put Elliot Randall, me. We had this little mafia rhythm section. Elliot Randall, myself, Neil Jason, and Alan Schwartzberg, and we all flew over in a Concorde with Gene, and Cher. He was dating Cher at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. And we wound out in the Manor, and I did his album there, and I did another album for some other band and another single for some other band. And while I was there, Cher got to know me, and she said, they're telling me that you're a pretty good songwriter. I'm doing an album called Take Me Home. Would you please give me a couple of songs that I might be able to do? And she says, and what I'm really looking for, because it's kind of a disco area, disco era in those days.
Sure.
She says, I'm not looking for a disco song. I'm getting like 5,000 of these a day. People sending me disco songs. She goes, can you give me an amazing, tear your heart out ballad?
Wow.
So I said, okay. So I had a song on my first album, which is called Red Hot and Blue, and it's called Pain in My Heart, which is then shortened to Love and Pain on her album. And I gave her that one, and she used it in all her live shows, her TV shows, her specials. She'd go on, like The Tonight Show or things like that. That would be, the song that she'd sing. And critically, to this day, and I love Cher. She's an amazing person. What a wonderful woman she is. To this day, I got to tell you that critics say Love and Pain is her best ballad performance of any song she's ever done. So I wrote that one. I kind of, ghost wrote a little bit with Stills and some things with him. I was in his band for a while. I wrote another couple of songs for her on some of the other albums, and for some other people who I can tell you that they used the ideas and they did very well. But when they're paying you $1,000 a day, you can't really get greedy, because back in the in those days, $1,000 a day was a lot of money.
Yeah, that's substantial. I mean, even today, it's still decent, substantial. You know, especially for musicians. You know, that's a good pay rate.
Hey, we'd be happy with 100 a day right now.
Well, that's so awesome that you were so, you know, giving and open. That means a lot, and you know, just incredible. Okay, so now you go from musician to songwriter, and the whole time you're pursuing your artistry, right?
Yep.
Okay, and then so when you come back now, you're on Quarto Valley Records, right?
Yeah,
There's a Quarto, right?
Quarto Valley, yeah.
Quarto, yeah.
Well, what happened was I you know, after Nina said, you know, record and whatever, she said also go out and play live. So I put this band together called Route 66.
Right.
And the band consists of ex-Wings members, and it also consists of the horns from the Conan show, the Basic Cable Band. And also, you know, that's Mark Pinder and La Bamba, Richie Rosenberg, and also Jerry Vivino when he's available, and
nice.
And and Joe Sublette is the guy that's kind of responsible for putting this band together with me. And Joe Sublette was Stevie Ray Vaughan's roommate.
Wow.
And he's a sax player, and he's one of the greatest sax players out there. He's a Texan. And and a bass player, Paul Ill, plays with Linda Perry a lot, and a guy called Max Butler on the second keyboard. We have a Hammond, so we have this 9-piece, and Gia, who was with Joe Walsh and also Springsteen. And by the way, the Conan O'Brien guys were in the E Street Band. You should know that they were the Springsteen horns for a long time.
That's beautiful.
So we put this band together, and from that moment on, it was on, because anybody coming out never heard things like this. And what we would do is we called it Route 66 because we take songs that started in Chicago and ended up in L.A., you know, that followed that road.
Wow.
And we do them a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So, and then we do originals, but the night consists of, you have a lot of fun. You get to sing and dance along, and the places are packed.
I checked out some of the videos online. You guys are crushing it, man. And you spell it ROOT.
Right.
66. Yeah. So you put a little
Route 66.
A little spin. Yeah. I like that, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Well, look, in the meantime, though, like you said,
So what happened was Quarto Valley Records is the owner of the label was told about me by his son. And he came out to some gigs, and he started video me.
Yeah.
And then he contacted me and said, "Hey, have you got any songs or any aspirations?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm thinking about, pitching. I've got a bunch of songs that I've already mixed and mastered. And what I want to tell you about is the amazing thing about this record, Fresh Bear Tracks, is everything, all the planets aligned, like with all the players and the studios. And no matter, even if I couldn't get into Horse Latitudes, which is Robby's place, Ultratone or another studio which would be open for me. And the thing about this record is Tony Bronigal, the producer, was out playing golf. And this I want you to hear because this is a great story.
Yeah.
With Ed Cherney. Do you know Ed Cherney? The mix?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The famous mix engineer.
One of the 5 greatest mixers there are.
Absolutely.
He's done everything. So they're out playing golf, and Tony says to Ed, "Well, what are you working on, Ed?" He says, "Oh, I'm doing Joe Bonamassa's record right now, and Willie Nelson's record right now, and then I'm doing this one and that one, and all these famous people." He says, "What are you working on, Tony?" Tony says, "Well, I just finished Richard T. Bear's record." He said, Richard T. Bear? Richard T. Bear? Tony said, yeah. He says, I haven't heard that name in a long, long time. I'm a Richard T. Bear fan, Ed says. He said, who's mixing it? And Tony said, we haven't picked a mixer yet. He says, I'm mixing it. He said,
oh, shit.
He says, well, we can't afford you, Ed.
Yeah.
He's doing this out of his own pocket. I hadn't,
Right.
I didn't have label money. You understand?
Right.
I financed this out of my own pocket.
Grassroots, baby.
Yeah. And Ed says, I don't care what he's got. I'm mixing his record. He says,
Nice.
You don't understand. When I first started in this business, Richard T. Bear was doing demos where I was working. And I was the assistant to the assistant tape op. The only thing they'd let me do in that studio was press stop or play. They wouldn't even let me press record.
Wow.
Richard was in there. He was so nice to me. And I've never forgotten, and I helped him get a record deal with his demos and things like that. He says,
Incredible.
You don't understand, this is a full circle for me.
That's
Now,
beautiful.
Yeah.
So Ed mixed the whole thing.
Yeah, but what you got to understand is one of the reasons why he mixed it and he said this is a full circle is because Ed at the time had stage 4 cancer and nobody knew it. And he had a limited amount of time left in his life. So, if not the last album he mixed, one of the last albums he ever worked on was mine. And we gave him 12 tracks to mix.
Yeah.
And he returned 17 to us.
Wow.
Now I'll tell you the story. I don't know if your listeners care or not, but I'll tell you the Ed Cherney story.
I care.
Well, it was a month after Nina passed, and
man.
Ed was on his way, and he was home, and he said, I need to see you, Bear. And I said, okay. So I drove over there, and I'd spend some time with him, and he wanted to know, he wanted me to read his medical reports, and I'm not a doctor, and he wanted to know what he has to look forward to, and he wanted to know about Nina's, transition and things like that. So it was very hard for me. I just lost my wife, but I loved Ed. And we'd hang out, and he said, let Rose, my wife, who ran the record plant, by the way, for 40 years,
Wow.
let Rose make you a sandwich. I said, I'm really not that hungry, Ed. He says, no, I want you to eat one of Rose's sandwiches. And I said, okay. So he yells down, he goes, Rose, make T-Bear a sandwich. She comes upstairs with a tray and a sandwich and a Perrier or something. And he says, have a bite of that sandwich. It's going to be great. So I take a bite. He says, how do you like that? I said, it's fantastic, Ed. Great sandwich.
Yeah.
I mean, what am I going to say,
Yeah, right.
So he says, we're even.
What?
I said, what do you mean we're even? He says, okay, so I was at the studio back in the day, and you guys called in lunch, and you got a whole bunch of hero sandwiches. And I was the only one without a sandwich. And you walked over to me and said, I'm not really hungry. You have this sandwich, Ed. And you gave me your sandwich. We're even.
Look at that.
And so I tell you the story because,
That's amazing.
you meet people coming up,
You just don't
and
know.
they may come back in your life,
That's right.
and you always appreciate, and you always try to be, a good soul. It's important. And
Man.
Ed repaid the favor with a sandwich. And
Incredible, man.
And one of the best mixes I ever heard.
There you go.
What I'd like to talk about is, there's a lot of musicians that have no insurance or no third-party insurance. And what we did to help musicians when I came up was we had these picnics and these events where it was nonprofit organizations, and we'd raise money and put musicians into detox or into halfway houses or sober living and give them a leg up. And we got a lot of people. We helped a lot of musicians. It was just for musicians, nobody else. And then we decided, this is such a good idea. Let's, instead of doing it once a year, let's have an arm of this picnic and call it the Musicians Assistance Program, called MAP. And a whole bunch of us got together. We were on a board, and a lot of famous cats. It then morphed into today. From MAP, it became Music Cares, and now it's an arm of the Grammys. And Music Cares, with Harold Owens at the helm and his great staff, have helped thousands and thousands and thousands of musicians and people that otherwise would have nowhere to turn. And with the COVID thing, the beautiful thing about MAP is they've had a charity arm of the Grammys that have sent out checks to I can't tell you how many musicians.
It's amazing.
And so, you'd be surprised at the ripple effect of doing something. You could start something. I started this thing with 12 other guys, Paul Butterfield and Ray Sharkey and all these other, Joe Farrell and all these other musicians, Buddy Arnold, and it became now Music Cares. You can't keep what you have unless you give it away.
That's right. Wow, look at that. I like that. Say that again. You can't keep what you have.
You can't keep what you have unless you give it away.
That's brilliant. Yeah. Can I borrow that?
You can borrow that.
That's fantastic.
It's helped me for a long time.
Wow. You've shared so many great stories and so much great wisdom, right? Through your experiences. What do you tell, obviously the business has changed drastically over the years in general, but then also because of the pandemic. But I believe things will bounce back. It might not be exactly the same, but I believe things are going to bounce back. What do you tell the up-and-coming generations? What's your words of wisdom to the players, musicians coming up? Artists, writers?
Here's what I say. I say listen to as much music as you can get your hands on. Don't resent the past. Don't regret the past. Live in the now and live your best life now. Live in the now. Listen to everything you can get your hands on, because you know what? I'll tell you, as far as music goes, in this world, nobody agrees on anything.
Yeah, you're right.
They don't.
You're right.
And nobody can speak another language that's across the border. But one of the languages that everybody can listen to and speak is music.
That's right.
Music is the universal language that brings us all together. If it wasn't for music, where would we be?
Come on, man. You're preaching, bro. Like I said when you first got on the line, you're preaching over here. I love that. Wow. Okay. T-Bear.
From the heart, man.
Man, that's pure soul. Come on. All right. Before we wrap, I want to do some fun rapid fire questions. I'm just going to ask you some fun things and don't even think about it. First thing that comes to mind. Cool?
Sure. Cocoa Puffs.
Favorite. I like it. You already knew. I said favorite food. You didn't even say it. You already knew. Cocoa Puffs? I love Cocoa Puffs. Favorite sport?
Baseball.
How do you spend your free time?
Try to fish as much as I can.
Ooh, I love fishing.
You know the definition of a fisherman, right?
What's that?
That's a jerk on one end of the line waiting for a jerk on the other end.
That's awesome. What activities do you enjoy on those long flights that we used to have?
What activities?
Sleeping or doing other stuff? working? I don't know, watching movies?
I got into lighting design. I like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's neat.
I like lighting. I like lighting design.
So you would study lighting while you're on a long flight?
Yeah, I own a
cool.
company called Bear Lighting. So a lot of my work I would do on a long flight would be having to do with lighting and laying out lighting designs and things like that. The other thing I like to do on a long flight is lyrics.
Oh, yeah.
I get inspired at 30,000 feet.
There you go.
Yeah, and I used to have a pilot's license, so I love flying.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. You know what? You're the second musician that I know personally, although we just met, but even still, you and Nathan East both have a pilot's license. Did that change your experience flying as a passenger for the better or for the worse at all? Or
Much better.
okay,
I know exactly what's going on
okay.
all the time.
See, because I'm one of those nervous flyers. It's so silly because we fly for a living, right? That's part of what we do.
Right.
But I just don't like turbulence. And I have a cousin who's a private jet pilot, and he always tries to explain it to me. But still, especially when you get the bad turbulence, that freaks me out, you know?
Yeah, well, nobody likes turbulence.
Yeah. I was on a flight with Nathan East once, and we were experiencing some hellacious turbulence going through the mountains and these giant air pockets. The plane is literally up and down, and he's just chilling, listening to music as if nothing's going on. And I look over, I'm like, Nathan, why are you so calm? Because I'm over here sweating, holding the seat, you know. He's like, oh, that's fine, man. Don't worry. There's
nothing you can do about it. Yeah. And I got to tell you, the guys sitting in front that are driving, they don't like turbulence either. So they're going to look for clean air anyway.
Yeah, that's smooth air. Ah, see. Well, that was fun. Okay. Well, I love those activities on flights that you mentioned. That's good. Keeps your mind occupied, right?
Absolutely.
All right. The last song, band, artist that you listened to that you had nothing to do with. So you didn't write, you didn't play, but just music that you listened to for fun most recently.
I've been listening to a record called Dylan's Gospel. I just listened to it. And it was put out 100 years ago on Epic Records.
Yeah.
And it's Mary Clayton and a whole bunch of people that sing Dylan songs in a gospel church.
Very cool.
That's what I've been listening to. Let's see, what else?
That's one of the most unique answers I've gotten in a while. Dylan's
yeah,
gospel,
I think.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Sign In Stranger was a song I listened to last night on Steely Dan.
Steely Dan, Sign In.
Yeah, on the Royal Scam album.
The Royal Scam. Oh, man, that's so cool. To this day, my favorite Steely Dan album is Kid Charlemagne.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're just...
I have a song called Cab Calloway on the new album.
Oh, nice.
And it's really an homage to Walter and Donald.
That's awesome.
Wait till you hear it. And Tom Scott plays the solo.
Sweet.
And it's Dean Parks is on it too.
Oh, Dean Parks.
Oh yeah, Dean Parks played on the album too.
Oh man, it's like my guitar hero.
Yeah. So it's right in the pocket. It's like
so cool.
It's like you're going. If T-Bear's voice wasn't on it, it would be Donald Fagen's voice. It's that kind of, it's in that wheelhouse.
That's awesome.
So those are the two things I listen to.
Beautiful. All right, are you binging any TV shows, favorite shows, or movies lately, or documentaries? Or
yes, J.D. Salinger, documentary on J.D. Salinger, on his life. He's the guy who wrote The Catcher in the Rye.
Ah, right.
I just watched his documentary on his life, and the most amazing documentary. It's all about him from being a kid until, and he was a recluse. You know, he was like this Howard Hughes kind of guy that wouldn't hang out with anybody and never accepted accolades and things. And he wrote like the novel, Catcher in the Rye. Yeah. And so he was a very suspiciously secretive kind of cat. And he used to write he lived up in New England, outside Concord, New Hampshire, in a little house up on a mountainside. And even though he was married and had children, he would go into what he called the bunker, which was on his property, and stay in there for weeks at a time, writing. He didn't want to be with anybody. Wow. And he had lots of secrets. And he had this secret family called the Glass family that he thought he was a part of. They didn't really exist, but he did their genealogy, he did everything. And I watched this documentary, and it was so fascinating. And I thought to myself, I walked right over to the keyboard, walked right over to the piano, and I sat down and I wrote one of my best songs, which is going to be on maybe the next album. And it's I laid it right out on Facebook on my Throwback Thursday. It's called The Book of Secrets, right?
Nice.
It's all about J.D. Salinger. And if you want to know where the Book of Secrets is, right here.
As you point to your head, that's right.
That's the Book of Secrets.
I love that.
So that's what I watched on TV recently.
That's cool. Anything reading? Your favorite novel or otherwise?
I'm not reading a lot right now, but I like Stephen King a bunch.
Yeah,
I love Stephen King. I've been a Stephen King fanatic.
Yeah. I can relate to that for sure.
That was the last thing I wrote. I read it. That was probably 4 or 5 months ago.
Cool. And when you go shopping, well, I guess now everybody's doing shopping online. Online or brick and mortar?
Online.
Really? Yeah.
Well, now.
Even before the pandemic.
Oh, before the pandemic, I would shop myself.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I find a lot of us musicians do that because we like to just go in and rummage through the stuff.
Oh, I love shopping.
Yeah, that's fun. Dream collaborate. Look, you collaborated with so many greats. Do you have any dream collaborations that haven't happened?
Absolutely. Okay. Sting.
Yeah.
David Gilmour.
Oh.
Mark Knopfler.
Oh, yes. Nobody good, though, right?
Let's see if there's anybody else.
I got to play on a record with Sting once.
Wow.
Yeah. It was with Sam Moore from Sam and Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played on Sam Moore's album, and Sam and Sting did a duet. So
I'll tell you my Sting story. I went to see him at the Garden, and it was, he did that. He had that hit out. If you love somebody, set them free.
Oh yeah,
at the time, right? Okay, and he had a killer band. Branford Marsalis was in the band, and those cats, and so I went home that night, and I'm thinking, wow, this cat's amazing. And I turn on, of course, MTV, and his video's on there, that song, right? And he had this little short blonde girl, and she was like the focal point of his video. And she's a dancer, and she gets on a chair, and she throws the chair down, and I went, oh, she's amazing. She was my crush at that point. For the next week or two. Yeah. Well, I went to LA to do an album, and I needed to get a place to stay at. And I was thinking to myself, man, if I could find this girl, this would be the coolest thing ever. I want to meet her. And see, I have a God. You make plans, my God laughs, And here's what happened. Somebody says to me, well, I know somebody is subletting their place because they're going away on a tour. And I said, cool, how long can I have it for? And they said, 2 weeks. I said, I'm in, because that's what it would take to do the album. And it was right near where the studio was. I get in there, I got the keys, I go in, my friend knew her and lets me in, and I walk over and I'm looking at her pictures, and it's the same chick that was in the video.
What?
Yeah. I'm sleeping in her bed, but she's not there.
That's a cruel trick, huh?
Yeah, right? That's my Sting story.
That is awesome. All right, and finally, T-Bear, what would you do if you weren't a career musician?
Oh. I'd be a charter boat captain take people fishing,
And I could see that.
or I'd be a pilot and take people from point A to point B.
I could see that too. You know what? You have a way of making people feel so comfortable and loved. I mean, bro, you're just the kindest spirit in the world. Thank you so much.
I want to thank you, Nomad, for your time, your energy. Your vibe is amazing.
Oh, man.
And I hope
Ditto.
we can hang sometime soon.
Yes, sir. And I was going to say, man, when I watch your videos, I'm jealous because I want to be jamming with you.
Well, let's do it.
I can't wait.
Let's do
it. Yes. As soon as we get through this, man.
As soon as we're through this and we got some live shit,
Okay.
You come jam with us.
Oh, I would love to. I'm getting all your info from Lisa. I'm locking it in. And a big shout out to Lisa Roy once again for connecting us. Thank you so much.
A big shout out to Lisa because she is helping me get back into, the rarefied air of music. So that's really good.
The world needs you, brother. So
thank
keep
you, man.
going. Yeah.
1, 4, 3. I love you. 1, 4, 3, brother.
I love that. Thank you, bro. Right back at you, my man.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Download, subscribe, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast platforms.
Sign up for the Career Musician newsletter at thecareermusician.com.
I'm just a nomad, nowhere man, writing the songs in this one-man band. A nomad, yeah, I'm a nomad. Hush now, darling, you'll be fine. I'll be back this way.
Hey, this is Nomad, host and creator of the Career Musician Podcast, and I am thoroughly stoked to be an official member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Pantheon Podcast Network is the first of its kind as an all-music-based podcast collective. Please be sure to check us out at pantheonpodcast.com for more info.